Hiber-Nation 38. Grizzly's Growls presents Stories from the Hiber-Nation. Monarch, the Big Bear of Tallac, by Ernest Thompson Seton, as read by David Grizzly Smith. Part 10. The Eddy. All the west slopes of Tallac were swept by the fire, and Kellyan moved to a new hut on the east side, where still were green patches, and so did the grouse, and the rabbit, and the coyote, and so did Grizzly Jack. His wound healed quickly, but his memory of the rifle smell continued. It was a dangerous smell, a new and horrible kind of smoke, one he was destined to know too well, and one, indeed, he was soon to meet again. Jack was wandering down the side of Tallac, following a sweet odor that called up memories of his former joys. The smell of honey, though he did not know it. A flock of grouse got leisurely out of his way and flew to a low tree when he caught a whiff of man smell, and then heard a crack like that which had stung him in the sheep corral, and down fell one of the grouse close beside him. He stepped forward to sniff, just as a man also stepped forward from the opposite bushes. They were within 10 feet of each other, and they recognized each other, for the hunter saw it was a singed bear with a wounded side, and the bear smelt the rifle smoke and the leather clothes. Quick as a grizzly, that is, quicker than a flash, the bear reared. The man sprang backward, tripped and fell, and the grizzly was upon him. Face to earth, the hunter lay like dead, but, ere he struck, Jack caught a scent that made him pause. He smelt his victim, and the smell was the rolling back of curtains or the conjuring up of a past. The days in the hunter's shanty were forgotten, but the feelings of those days were ready to take command at the bidding of his nose. His nose drank deep of a draught that quelled all rage. The grizzly's humor changed. He turned and left the hunter quite unharmed. Oh, blind one with the gun! All he could find in explanation was, "You can never tell what a grizzly'll do, but it's a good play to lay low when he has you cornered." Never came to his mind to credit the shaggy brute with an impulse born of good. And when he told the sheep herder of his adventure in the pool, of his hitting high on the body, and of losing the trail in the forest fire, down by the shack when he turned up sudden and had me, I thought my last day was come. Why he didn't swat me, I don't know. But I tell you this, Pedro, that bar what killed your sheep on the upper pasture in the sheep canyon is the same. No two bars has hind feet alike when you get a clear-cut track, and this holds out even right along. What about the 50-foot bar I saw with my own eyes, caramba? Oh, that must have been the night you were working a kill care with your sheep herder's delight. But don't worry, I'll get him yet. So Kellyan set out on a long hunt and put in practice every trick he knew for the circumventing of a bear. Lou Von Ammy was invited to join him, for his yellow cur was a trailer. They packed 4 horses with stuff and led him up over the ridge to the east side of Tallac and down away from Jack's Peak, that Kellyan had named in honor of his bear cub, toward Fallen Leaf Lake. The hunter believed that here he would meet not only the gringo bear that he was after, but would also stand a chance of finding others, for the place had escaped the fire. They quickly camped, setting up their canvas sheet for shade more than against rain, and after picketing their horses in a meadow, went out to hunt. By circling around Leaf Lake, they got a good idea of the wild population. Plenty of deer, some black bear, 1 or 2 cinnamon and grizzly, and one track along the shore that Kellyan pointed to, saying briefly, "That's him." "You mean old Pedro's gringo?" "Yep, that's the 50-foot grizzly. I suppose he stands maybe 7 foot high in daylight, but of course bars will pull out long at night." So the yellow cur was put on the track and led away with funny little yelps, while the two hunters came stumbling along behind him as fast as they could, calling at times to the dog not to go so fast, and thus making a good deal of noise, which Gringo Jack heard a mile away as he ambled along the mountainside above them. He was following his nose to many good and eatable things, and therefore going upwind. This noise behind was so peculiar, he wanted to smell it, and to do that he swung along back over the clamor and then descended down to the downwind side, and thus he came on the trail of the hunters and their dog. Well, his nose informed him at once. Here was the hunter he once felt kindly toward, and two other smells of far back, both hateful. All three were now the smell marks of foes, and a rumbling woof was the expressive sound that came from his throat. That dog smell in particular roused him, though it is very sure he had forgotten all about the dog, and Gringo's feet went swiftly and silently, yes, with marvelous silence, along the tracks of the enemy. On rough, rocky ground a dog is scarcely quicker than a bear, and since the dog was constantly held back by the hunters, the bear had no difficulty in overtaking them. Only 100 yards or so behind, he continued, partly in curiosity, pursuing the dog that was pursuing him, till a shift of the wind brought the dog a smell call from the bear behind. He wheeled. Of course, you never follow trail smell when you can find body smell, and came galloping back with a different yapping and a bristling in his mane. "I don't understand that," whispered Bonamy. "Oh, it's the bear, all right," was the answer. The dog, bounding high, went straight toward the foe. Jack heard him coming, smelt him coming, and at length saw him coming, but it was the smell that roused him, the full scent of the bully of his youth. The anger of those days came on him, and cunning enough to make him lurk in ambush. He backed to one side of the trail where it passed under a root, and as the little yellow tyrant came, Jack hit him once. Hit him as he had done some years before, but now with the power of a grown grizzly. No yelp escaped the dog. No second blow was needed. The hunters searched in silence for half an hour before they found the place and learned the tale from many silent tongues. "I'll get even with him," muttered Bonamy, for he loved that contemptible little yap cur. "Well, that's Pedro's Gringo, all right. He's sure cunning to run his own back track, but we'll fix him yet." And they vowed to kill that bear or get done up themselves. Without a dog, they must make a new plan of hunting. They picked out 2 or 3 good places for pen traps, where trees stood in pairs to make the pillars of the den. And then Killian returned to camp for the axe, while Bonamy prepared the ground. As Killian came near their open camping place, he stopped from habit and peeped ahead for a minute. He was about to go down when a movement caught his eye. There, on his haunches, sat a grizzly, looking down on the camp. The singed brown of his head and back and the white spot on each side of his back left no doubt that Killian and Pedro's Gringo were again face to face. He was a long shot, but the rifle went up, and he was about to fire. The bear suddenly bent his head down, and lifting his hind paw, began to lick at a little cut. This brought the head and chest nearly in line with Killian. A sure shot, so sure that he fired hastily. He missed the head and the shoulder, but, strange to say, he hit the bear in the mouth and in the hind toe, carrying away one of his teeth and the side of one toe. Well, the grizzly sprang up with a snort and came tearing down the hill toward the hunter. Killian climbed a tree and got ready, but the camp lay just between them, and the bear charged on that instead. One sweep of his paw, and the canvas tent was down and torn. Whack! And the tins went flying this way. Whisk! And flour sacks went that. And rip! And the flour went off like smoke. Slap! Crack! And a box full of odds and ends was scattered into the fire. Whack! And a bag full of cartridges was tumbled after it. Whang! And the water pail was crushed. Pat! 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 And all the cups were in useless bits. Well, Killian, safe up a tree, got no fair few to shoot, could only wait until the storm center cleared a little. The bear chanced on a bottle of something with a cork loosely in it. He seized it adroitly in his paws, twisted out the cork, and held the bottle up to his mouth with a comical dexterity that told of previous experience. But whatever it was, it did not please the invader. He spat and spilled it out and flung the bottle down as Kellyan gazed astonished. A remarkable crack, crack, crack from the fire was heard now, and the cartridges began to go off in ones, twos, fours, and numbers unknown. Gringo whirled about. He'd smashed everything in view. He did not like that 4th of July sound, so, springing to a bank, he went bumping and heaving down to the meadow, and had just stampeded the horses when, for the first time, Gringo exposed himself to the hunter's aim. His flank was grazed by another leaden stinger, and Gringo, wheeling, went off into the woods. The hunters were badly defeated. It was fully a week before they'd repaired all the damage done by their shaggy visitor, and were once more at Fallen Leaf Lake with a new store of ammunition and provisions, their tent repaired, their camp outfit complete. They said little about their vow to kill that bear. Both took for granted that it was a fight to the finish. They never said if we get him, but when we get him. Thank you for listening to Stories from the Hiber-Nation. Comment on the website at grizzliesgrowls.com. This program is offered under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.